Auto queue, yuko sawa? Haifanyi kazi. I can't turn. We have a minute. Haya, sawa. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on an online platform for a look at the top stories this evening. We begin with a look at graft, and the ghost of the persistent Anglo-Leasing scandal has returned and will this time haunt 3 corporations and 13 individuals. This is after the Director of Public Prosecution, Keriako Tobiko, gave the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission the green light to charge those involved. While the identities of those to be charged have not been revealed, Keriako did say in his statement that there is sufficient evidence to sustain all charges as recommended by the EACC. The unknown suspects will, according to the EACC chairman Mumo Matemu, appear before the court this week, remaining vague on the specific day. Once in the dock, the suspects will face charges that include conspiracy to commit an economic crime, fraudulent acquisition of property, engaging in a project without prior planning, abuse of office, and the willful failure to comply to the law relating to procurement. Of course, that is a story we are keeping an eye for you, and once it develops, we'll let you know. Now, the Kenya National Union of Teachers is raising the red flag over an incident in Mandera County in which a primary school teacher was shot dead. The victim, identified as Ibrahim Ali Hassan, who was teaching at Shampole Primary School, was gunned down by unknown assailants. NAT says it will not tolerate the killing of teachers in Mandera and has called for a nationwide strike if the perpetrators are not charged within the next 5 days. Take a look. All right, in a few hours, more than 450,000 candidates who sat last year's Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examination will receive their results. As recommended by the Kilemi Miria Task Force, the Kenya National Examination Council will not rank schools or candidates. This time round, NEC will also release results for early childhood development examination as well as business examination from various colleges. Let's now speak to a reporter who's based in Kisumu, Victor Ogale. Ogale, that is a region that has produced some of the top candidates, some of the top skills in the country. What sort of expectation is on the ground?
Well, thank you very much, Lindo. Good to, and indeed, people here are eager for the KCSE results, for the 2014 KCSE results. Remember, this is a region that has, over the years, continued to produce Kenya's top performers. Last year, we had Maseno School being ranked number 5 in the country, and it was also the top school in the county here, in the county of Kisumu. Other schools such as St. Francis, which is in Siaya, we had Agorosari, which is in Homa Bay County, we had schools such as St. Joseph's Rapogi.
Victor, what kind of expectation is there? Do they expect good results? Are people eager for these results tomorrow?
Indeed, they are expecting good results. Some of the school administrators that we managed to talk to, Kisi High School, Maseno School, and other secondary schools, even Kisumu Day here in Kisumu Town, they are expecting good results, though most of the school heads are not happy with the scrapping off of the ranking system, similar to what happened 2 months ago with the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education.
All right, Victor, let me draw you away from the results that will be released tomorrow. Let's focus on some incident that I understand happened, I think, in Ugenya. There are some children who were injured. Do you have any idea what happened?
Yeah, it was a function that was being chaired by Education PS Belio Kipsang in Ugenya constituency, where the Member of Parliament David Oching was handing over the Ugenya TTC to the government, and when a huge storm came and the chairs were thrown up, the tent was thrown up, and basically at the time there were school kids who were performing to entertain the guests, including Belio Kipsang, and now that is what led to the calamity, rather to the casualties, though no one has died, but the kids were injured. Some have been treated, some have been discharged from hospital.
Victor, finally, what kind of numbers are we looking at? How many children were injured? Do you know?
We're talking about close to 20 school kids who were singing there in front of the dais.
Thank you so much, Victor Gale, speaking to us from Kisumu. Now let's move on and focus our attention at the coast. Over 2,000 jobs within the tourism industry are at risk following low tourist numbers. According to hoteliers at the coastal region, they say that the number of flights from Europe has declined from 30 to only 6 per week. And as KTN's Ian Ofula reports, those affected are blaming the travel advisories issued against Kenya for the dwindling numbers.
Just 5 months down the line, and the ripple effects of the terror attacks witnessed in the country are still being felt. Stakeholders in the tourism industry are not too happy with the trend in numbers so far this year. This they attribute to travel advisories issued last year.
The charters dropping from over 30 plus to less than 10 clearly tells you that there is a big gap and there's a shortfall in terms of how many tourists actually are visiting the Kenya coast. And those numbers are evident even in the returns that are given by the Kenya Tourist Board.
The stakeholders, among them hoteliers, have opted to lobby various foreign embassies at the ITB, an annual trade fair for the tourism industry set to be held in Germany.
Quietly lobbying, we're speaking to both our government and our authorities, and equally we are speaking to the other source market ambassadors, specifically UK, France, even the US, so that we can see how these things can be sorted out.
They further argue that over 2,000 jobs within the industry are at risk due to high maintenance costs with little income. A number of hotels within the coastal region are also reported to have closed down due to the challenges experienced. Ian Ofula, KTN.
Let's bring you back to Nairobi, but on an issue that's affecting probably the entire continent. Outgoing Namibian President Hifikepunye Pohamba has won the 2014 Ibrahim Prize for Achievement in African Leadership. Pohamba has been recognized for his focus in forging national cohesion and reconciliation at a key stage of Namibia's consolidation of democracy and social and economic development. The prize committee of the Ibrahim Foundation assesses democratically elected former executive heads of state from African countries who have served their term in office within the limits set by their country's constitution and have left office within the last 3 years. 29-year-old Pohamba was named the recipient of the world's most valuable individual award for African leadership. The award, known to be the most valuable individual prize globally, comes with a $5 million cash prize paid over a period of 10 years. The winner is thereafter given $200,000 every year for life. Pohamba, a former rebel who fought for his country's independence, has served for 2 terms as Namibian president. He was first elected in 2004 and again in 2009 and is due to be succeeded by President-elect Hage Geingob. Pohamba has been recognized for his focus in forging national cohesion and reconciliation at a key stage of Namibia's consolidation of democracy and social and economic development. His deep commitment to the rule of law and respect for the constitution, in particular on the issue of term limit, also impressed the prize committee.
Basic indicators: is there equal economic opportunity? Is there safety and rule of law? Is there respect for human rights? Is there human development, education, healthcare?
Namibia is a very young country. It's amongst the youngest on the continent. And all these achievements we are talking about were made in a relatively short period of time.
The committee, which consists of 7 members, also recognized Pohamba as a leader who laid emphasis on issues of gender equality, which led to notable achievement of having a 48% representation of women in parliament.
So many stories about those kind of people, how they gave and left in dignity with clean hands, having done the service. We have heroes, Chris. So that what gives us hope that we will move forward. Don't just focus on the bad example, which are, filling the bed.
And the criteria is not very difficult. The criteria primarily is somebody who's a leader, who has integrity, who has done enough, to lift his country out of repression or oppression or what have you.
The prize committee may choose not to award the prize, as was the case in 2009, 2012 and 2013. Mo Ibrahim is a British Sudanese mobile communications entrepreneur and philanthropist who made billions from investing in Africa. He launched the prize to encourage African leaders to leave power peacefully. The much anticipated Lapsset project will stall even longer, as the National Land Commission has now withheld 400 million shillings allocated for the compensation of landowners. The Commission says that bank details and national identification serial numbers of the landowners are unclear, thereby causing confusion in the compensation process. The first batch of 157 landowners in the area designated for the Lamu port, a component of the Lapsset project, has been identified for compensation, but the process has delayed since last year. Residents and leaders in Lamu have complained about the long delays in the release of these funds. So Swazuri's Commission and the Ministry of Transport are jointly handling the compensation, acquiring the land at 1.5 million shillings per acre. Let's now take a look at what's making headlines in business. Tea production in the country is on the rise, a factor that might lead to lower prices at the auction. According to the Kenya Tea Development Agency, tea production was up 8.7% in the 6-month period between July and December 2014. The agency is, however, hoping for a prolonged dry period that could essentially lead to lower output and fetch higher returns for farmers. Charles Gitonga tells us more.
Agency KTDA is banking on prolonged dry spell for better tea prices. The rains experienced over the last year are said to have increased tea production by 8.7% between July and December, consequently driving down the cost of the commodity in the local and global market. In the 6-month period, smallholder green leaf production stood at 569.7 million kilograms compared to 524 million a year earlier. Tea factories processed 128.07 million kilograms of tea from 118.1 million processed in the same period in the previous year. The agency is hoping a dry spell between January and end of March will lower production, leading to better prices for tea. A kilo of processed tea during the last 6 months traded at an average price of $2.23 and $2.42 during the same period in 2013, a decline of 8%. Overproduction of tea has been attributed to as a main challenge in the sector over the last 2 years. In 2014, tea farmers' earnings dropped to 15.8 billion shillings in bonus payments, which was the lowest in the past 5 years. For every kilogram of tea harvested, a farmer received an average of 17 shillings and 31 cents, down from 31 shillings and 65 cents paid in 2013. The tea agency is currently asking farmers to diversify into orthodox teas as opposed to the traditional black CTC. The investment in orthodox tea production will guarantee farmers better prices through enabling exports into new markets.
Cement maker East African Portland has recorded a net loss of 124 million shillings in 2014 half-year earnings, making a U-turn from 2013's pre-tax profit of 171 million shillings. The company attributes the loss to a decline in major components such as sales volumes, which dropped by 7% due to maintenance shutdown of its packaging and clinker production lines in the second quarter of the year. Sales revenues also dropped by 8% to 4.1 billion shillings due to a 5% price reduction driven by market forces. The cost of sales went up by 8% to 3.5 billion shillings, driven by cost of clinker purchased during the maintenance shutdown period. Now, the company also says that profits were further hurt by increased price competition as industry capacity continues to exceed demand in the market. Portland Cement expects to bounce back to profitability following refurbishment of its plant in the second quarter of last year. Kenyan women lag behind their male counterparts in terms of mobile adoption, an indication that opportunities for mobile connectivity remains biased between the genders. According to a report by Global Telecommunication Association Group, Kenyan women are slightly falling behind the country's fast-growing mobile technology ecosystem. The report indicates that Kenya has a unique subscriber penetration and a relatively small gender gap in mobile ownership of 7%, with a gender gap much higher among poorer households at 16%. The GSMA, however, states that Kenya's gender gap is relatively small compared to other countries surveyed in the index. The gap has been attributed to a combination of factors, including lower financial independence and education levels, which can inhibit women's access and usage of mobile phones, particularly at more sophisticated levels of usage. Let's hope we can turn this around in the coming days, months, probably years. Let's move on now. And African countries have been urged to strengthen potential for increased trade in fish. So far, trade is constrained by inadequate market, trade infrastructure and poor policy implementation. High transport costs, complex and unaligned trade rules and poor market information also prevent Africa from optimizing the social and economic benefits available. The African Union, through its Fish Trade for a Better Future initiative funded by the European Commission, is expected to help strengthen value chains and, with a focus on sustainability, give better access to intra-regional markets and subsequently improve food and nutritional security and income in sub-Saharan Africa.
We need to invest more along the value chain. We want to see more businessmen investing in storage or transportation facilities that are refrigerated. We want to see people at the end of the consumer side of it having storage facilities for whatever they get from the source. We want to see value addition.
We need to exploit the fish as a vehicle through which we can create wealth, we can create money. And the wealth is created through trade. As I said in my speech, that a $1 worth of fish generates $3 more as it passes through the value chain.
Great, let's take a look at sports news. Sammy Kitwara won his 5th title at the world's best 10 kilometers in Puerto Rico to become the most successful athlete ever in the world's best 10,000. In the women's race, Kenya's Cynthia Limo had to settle for second behind Ethiopia's Belanesh Olgira, who became the 3rd Ethiopian woman to win the world's best 10,000 after Ejigo in 2011.
Despite facing one of the strongest wins in the history of the Puerto Rico World Best 10K, Sammy Kitwara looked set for a historical finish. The former World Half Marathon silver medalist stuck with the lead group of 15 men that moved at a slow pace, hitting the 3rd kilometers at 9 minutes and 7 seconds, a minute slower than the course record pace. The race got intense after 7 kilometers, and a faster pace left 4 Kenyans, including Kitwara, John Mwangangi, Stephen Sambu, and Julius Kogo in front, along with Uganda's 3-time Commonwealth champion Moses Kipsiro. The final kilometer saw a duel between Kitwara and Mwangangi, but Kitwara managed to run away with 100 meters to go to bag his 5th title. Mwangangi and Kogo completed the podium. In the women's race, Belanesh Olgira became the 3rd Ethiopian woman to win the world's best 10K after Ejigu in 2011 and Deriba Merga in 2008. Kenya's Cynthia Limo finished 2nd ahead of compatriot Betsy Saina. Lynn Washira, KTN.
Jose Mourinho claimed his first trophy since returning for his 2nd spell as Chelsea manager with a comfortable Capital One Cup final victory over Tottenham at Wembley. John Terry and Diego Costa scored the 2 goals against Tottenham Hotspurs, who were out to make a repeat of the success over Chelsea in this competition 7 years ago. The win gave Mourinho his first silverware since La Liga's success with Real Madrid in 2012, and Chelsea their first since the Europa League final victory against Benfica in Amsterdam a year later. Despite a career laden with trophies, Mourinho claimed this was the most important final of his time in the game. Well, so those are the top stories at this hour. We thank you for watching. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu. Tunafanya mbiu ya Kisumu.